I knew something inside Jonas had snapped the night I laughed at his jealousy. The sound left my mouth too sharp, too sure, like I'd been waiting to prove I wasn't afraid of losing him. Now, standing in our dim kitchen at 2 a.m., the air thick with the smell of cold coffee, I watch him move around me without a glance, and it hits me. He hasn't asked where I've been in 3 days. He hasn't even asked who I was with. The silence is heavier than any accusation he ever threw at me. I swallow hard, because there's a part of me that needed him to care. Maybe more than I dared admit, and as he brushes past, expression unreadable, I feel a cold flash of panic. What truth is he hiding from himself? And why does his calm feel more dangerous than his anger ever did? When he stops at the doorway and whispers, "You don't get to laugh now," everything inside me freezes, because I don't know what he means or what he's about to do. The morning after feels like waking in someone else's life. Jonas moves around the apartment with the calm, precise rhythm of a man who has made a decision he's not ready to tell me about. I watch him make coffee without asking if I want any, a small routine he never used to skip, and the omission cuts deeper than arguments ever did. Lena's name hovers unspoken in my mind, a ghost I can't admit to fearing, because I'm the one who pushed for openness. I'm the one who laughed, told Jonas he was overreacting, told him jealousy was a weakness, not a wound. Now he's quiet, controlled, maybe even free. And I don't know where that leaves me. As he sets his mug down and looks at me with steady eyes instead of wounded ones, a chill runs up my spine. Why does it feel like he's already forgiven me? Or, worse, forgotten me? Later, when Jonas leaves for work without kissing my forehead like he always did, the apartment goes quiet in a way that feels aimed at me. I wander into the living room, sinking into the couch where we once tangled our legs and shared secrets, but now the cushions hold only the memory of us. I scroll through my phone, hovering over Lena's messages, her warmth, her curiosity, her easy laughter. She had never meant to wedge herself between us. I was the one who opened that door. I was the one who teased Jonas about being threatened by her interest. But now, staring at her last text, "Are you okay?" I wonder if she knows that something between Jonas and me has shifted beyond repair. And the worst part? I don't know which of them I'm afraid of losing more. Worse, by evening, I can't stand the silence anymore, so I call Lena. Her voice melts through the speaker like she's been waiting for me. But the moment she says my name, guilt surges hot and sharp. I pace the hallway, fingers dragging along the wall, wishing I could explain the storm inside me. She asks if Jonas is okay, and I almost tell her no, that he's slipping away in a terrifyingly calm way. Instead, I swallow the truth and pretend things are normal. But she hears the crack in my voice. "Mia," she says softly, "what moment broke you two?" I freeze, breath catching, because I don't know how to answer. Was it my laugh, his silence, or the truth I still refuse to face that I wanted too much from both of them, and now I'm losing everything? Jonas comes home late, the kind of late that feels deliberate. I sit on the edge of the bed, the room lit only by the soft bedside lamp, and wait for him to look at me. Ask where I've been. Ask why. My voice broke on the phone. But he doesn't. He simply removes his jacket, places his keys on the dresser, and begins to undress with the silent resolve of a man who no longer needs answers. My heart pounds because I finally realize what terrifies me most. I don't want a partner who never questions me. I want one who still feels something. When Jonas finally sits on the opposite side of the bed, leaving inches of cold space between us, he sighs softly. Not angry, not sad, just done. And that sound breaks something inside me I didn't know was fragile. The next morning, I can't shake the feeling that Jonas is living a few steps ahead of me, like he's already made peace with something I still can't name. He sits at the dining table scrolling through his phone, the quiet between us thick but strangely balanced, as if he's found a way to detach without drifting. I make myself coffee, just to fill the air with sound, but he doesn't look up. I wait for the familiar sting of jealousy or frustration to show in his face, but instead he offers me a polite, almost gentle smile, as if we're roommates instead of lovers. That smile hurts more than anger ever could. It feels like a door slowly closing. Not slammed, not forced. Just settling shut because there's nothing left to hold it open. I stand there with my mug, warming my palms, and wonder when exactly I became the one who wanted more. I text Lena and tell her I need to see her. There's something magnetic about the way she listens, the way she fills silence without drowning it. When she opens her apartment door, the warmth hits me instantly. Soft lights, gentle music, a smell like vanilla and cedar. She pulls me into a hug that lingers, a moment just long enough to make my chest tight. I want to tell her everything, but guilt clings to my tongue. She steps back, studying my face with eyes too patient for someone caught in the middle of someone else unraveling. "You don't look okay," she says, and her voice is steady in a way that makes me want to collapse into her softness. I sit on her couch, hands fidgeting, and try to speak, but all that comes out is a shaky breath. How do you confess you broke something you thought you were brave enough to handle? We sit facing each other on Lena's couch, knees almost touching, and the quiet between us feels different, safer, but also full of questions I don't want to answer. Lena waits, patient as ever, fingers curled around a mug she never actually sips from. I tell her about the silence at home, about Jonas' strange calm, about the way he feels more like a fading echo than a partner. She listens, brows drawn slightly together, her concern genuine and heavy. "You pushed him away by mocking what he was afraid of," she says softly. Not accusing, just offering truth. I wince because hearing it spoken aloud makes it real in a way my thoughts never did. She reaches out, brushing her fingers against mine, and I feel something shift. Warmth, yearning, regret tangled together. I whisper, "What if I already lost him?" She squeezes my hand and doesn't let go. When I return home, Jonas is in the shower. The sound of water echoing through the apartment feels like a countdown I'm not ready for. I sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the scattered clothes and the half-open drawer he forgot to close. Ordinary mess, yet suddenly symbolic, like proof he still lives here, even if he feels miles away. When he steps out, towel wrapped around his waist, he doesn't seem surprised to see me. He just gives a nod, a soft acknowledgement, like we're acquaintances crossing paths. I try to speak, but the words collapse under the weight of everything unsaid. He dries his hair, unbothered, unaffected, and for the first time I see something frighteningly clear. I wanted openness, but I never imagined him stepping all the way through that door. Now I'm the one terrified of what's on the other side. I'll see ya. That night, Jonas lies beside me, but feels like he's sleeping on another planet. The bed hardly shifts with his weight, as if his body has learned not to disturb mine. I turn toward him, watching the faint rise and fall of his breath, wondering when affection became something he could set aside without effort. I reach out, fingers hovering just above his shoulder, craving contact, craving proof that we're not already strangers. But before I touch him, he whispers into the darkness, "Mia, don't do that. Not angry. Not hurt. Just tired." I pull my hand back slowly, pulse racing with shame, and stare at the ceiling. His words loop in my head, quieter but sharper than anything he said in months. I mocked his jealousy, and now he's unlearning me piece by piece, and I don't know how to stop it. The next day feels like walking through fog. Jonas leaves early without a word, and I'm left in the quiet apartment, listening to the echo of the door, shutting like a verdict. I try to distract myself, cleaning, folding clothes, rearranging the books he swears he doesn't care about. But the silence follows me from room to room. It's not hostile, it's indifferent. And that's somehow worse. I keep wondering when exactly the shift happened, when curiosity turned into withdrawal, when his questions died out. I used to fear his jealousy because it felt like a cage. Now I fear its absence because it feels like he's slipping through my hands. I open the window for air, but the cold breeze only tightens something in my chest. I thought I wanted openness. I thought I wanted freedom. Now all I can ask myself is, what good is freedom if no one is reaching for you? I meet Lena in a small cafe tucked between two old brick buildings. She spots me instantly, waving with that gentle smile that always feels like an invitation to breathe again. We sit at a corner table, steam rising from our cups, and she studies me in the way only someone who cares too much can. I tell her I feel like I'm losing Jonas, like something inside him shut off the moment I laughed at the wrong thing. She doesn't rush to comfort me. She lets me unravel slowly, word by word, until I'm staring at my hands, wondering when they started shaking. Lena reaches across the table, lightly grazing my wrist, grounded. "You can't fix something you refuse to look at," she says softly. Her voice is warm, but the truth stings. I know she's right. I just don't know which part of me I'm supposed to confront first. After leaving the cafe, I wander the city with no destination, letting noise replace the thoughts I can't face. Cars pass, people laugh. The world keeps moving while I feel stuck between versions of myself, who I wanted to be, who I pretended to be, and who I actually am. I find myself replaying nights when Jonas held me close, when Lena's laughter made me feel fearless, when I believed I could balance everything without breaking anything. But now, the balance feels impossible. I wanted honesty, but I wasn't honest with myself. I wanted openness, but only when I controlled the outcome. And the moment Jonas stopped reacting, I realized how much I'd taken his vulnerability as something that would always be there. I sit on a bench, hands buried in my pockets, wondering when love became something I didn't know how to hold. When I return home, Jonas is sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, legs stretched out casually, looking more relaxed than he has in weeks. The sight feels like a punch, not because he's calm, but because his calm has nothing to do with me anymore. I sit across from him, waiting for him to look up, to ask where I was or who I was with, but he doesn't. He just nods, like acknowledging a stranger in a waiting room. I try to speak, but the words crumble. Instead, I ask the simplest thing. "Are we okay?" He pauses, not startled, just thoughtful, and then says, "Are you?" The question hits harder than any accusation, because I don't know the answer. Jonas returns to his phone, the conversation already over, and I realize he's not avoiding me. He's just exhausted by the person I've been. Later that night, I lie awake, listening to Jonas breathe. He's asleep, peaceful, untouched by the storm I'm drowning in. I study the curve of his shoulder, the familiar shape of his profile, and realize that, for the first time, I'm afraid he doesn't need me. Not like before. Not in the way I took for granted. I turn onto my back, staring at the faint shadows on the ceiling, and feel the ache crawl up my spine. I wanted the kind of love that could stretch without breaking, but I never learned how to hold it gently. I hurt him, mocked the part of him that was scared to lose me, and now I'm the one terrified of being forgotten. My throat tightens. Somewhere between the silence and his steady breathing, a truth forms. If I don't face myself now, I'll lose him. And maybe Lena too. The next morning, Jonas sits at the dining table with a notebook open, writing something with complete focus. I stand at the doorway watching him, feeling like an intruder in my own life. He used to look up the second he sensed me, but now he doesn't even flinch. It's strange how silence can get louder the longer it's left unchecked. I finally clear my throat, and he glances at me. Expression calm, almost neutral. I ask what he's writing, but he shrugs lightly. It's nothing important, he says. But the way he shields the page tells me it's something he doesn't want me to see. Something he's keeping to himself. My chest tight. I realize he's building a world where my access isn't automatic anymore. And maybe that's fair. I'm the one who treated his fear like a joke. Still, the sight of him protecting his thoughts stings in a way I wasn't prepared for. I whisper his name, hoping he'll let me in. He doesn't. I walk to a nearby park to clear my head, but peace doesn't follow. Instead, the cold air drags every truth to the surface. I sit on a bench, watching dogs tug their owners and children chase each other through fallen leaves. Simple moments that feel impossibly far from the mess inside my chest. I pull out my phone and hover over Lena's name. She feels like the only person who sees the version of me I'm trying to hold together. But reaching for her now feels like leaning on someone who shouldn't have to carry the weight I created. I tuck my phone away, letting my breath fog in front of me. A woman walks past, laughing into her scarf, and I envy her ease. I wonder when I last felt like that. Light, unburdened, unafraid of love becoming something I could ruin. The truth lands heavy. I miss who I was before I hurt Jonas. Eventually, I walk back home, rehearsing 10 different versions of what I want to say. But when I open the door, Jonas is standing in the living room with his jacket on, keys in hand. He looks surprised to see me, but not unsettled, just steady. He says he's heading out for a bit, and something in me snaps. Not in anger, but in fear. Fear that every time he leaves now, he's walking farther from us. I step closer and ask where he's going, not because I want control, but because I finally want to understand him. He studies me for a moment, his eyes soft but unreadable, then says he's meeting someone from work for a drink. It's reasonable, harmless even, yet it hits me like a blow. Not because of the drink, but because he didn't feel the need to tell me earlier. I realize the openness I demanded now applies to both of us in ways I never imagined. After Jonas leaves, the apartment feels too big and too quiet. I pace the hallway, replaying every interaction from the past month. The slow unraveling, the moments I thought were harmless, but were actually tiny cracks forming under the surface. I open the fridge and stare at nothing, close it again, then collapse onto the couch. The weight of everything I haven't admitted presses hard against my ribs. I wanted Jonas to trust the openness I asked for, but I didn't give him the same grace. I held on to Lena in a way that blurred lines, then laughed at his fear like it was something childish. Now I'm the one terrified, not of losing him, but of realizing I caused the shift I can't undo. The room feels different without him, like the air itself is waiting for a confession I still don't know how to make. Hours later, Jonas returns. I hear the keys jingle, the soft click of the door, and my pulse jumps. He walks in with a calm expression, hanging his jacket with practiced ease. I want to ask how his night was, if he had fun, if he talked about us, or didn't. Instead, I stand in the doorway watching him, hoping he'll offer something first. He doesn't. Not out of spite, but because he seems to have made peace with the gaps between us. Finally, I force out the truth I've been swallowing. I'm scared I pushed you too far. Jonas looks at me, really looks, for the first time in days. His shoulders ease, and he lets out a slow breath. Mia, he says quietly, I just needed space to stop hurting. The words hit deep. I step closer, unsure if I'm allowed to touch him yet. He doesn't pull away, but he doesn't reach for me either. The next morning, the apartment feels too fragile to breathe in. Jonas moves slowly, like someone trying not to break thin ice. I watch him make coffee, the careful way he measures the grounds, the way he avoids stepping too close to me without making it obvious. This used to be our safest time. The quiet minutes before the world demanded anything from us. Now it feels like we're both pretending not to notice how far apart we've drifted. I lean against the counter and whisper, "Jonas, I don't want to lose you." The words come out cracked, like they've been fighting to escape for weeks. He pauses, hand resting on the coffee pot, shoulders rising just slightly. "Then stop running from what you feel," he murmurs, not turning around. The truth of it makes my lungs tighten, because he's right. I've been running from the fear that I'm the one who broke us, and that fixing it means admitting I'm not as brave as I pretended to be. I step outside for air, but instead I find myself walking toward Lena's building without thinking. My chest feels tight, not from panic, but from the weight of things I've been avoiding. I ring her bell, and she opens the door wearing that look she always has when she can sense I'm unraveling. Soft worry, quiet understand. She pulls me inside, and the warmth of her apartment melts the cold that's been clinging to me all morning. I sit on her couch, fingers twisting together, and finally admit, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. She sits beside me, not too close, letting me choose the space between us. You're allowed to want more than one person. You're just not allowed to lie about what it does to you. Her honesty strikes deeper than comfort would have. I realize I've been lying to her, to Jonas, to myself, out of fear of choosing wrong. Lena asks what I feel, really feel, and the question terrifies me more than losing either of them. I try to answer, but everything inside me tangles at once. I tell her I care about her, more than I expected to, more than I ever said out loud. Her eyes flicker, not with surprise, but with something gentler, like she's known all along. But then I admit the part that hurts, that I still love Jonas, even when he scares me with how calm he's become. Lena listens without flinching, even though my words must cut. She takes a deep breath and says, "Love isn't the problem. Honesty is." And for the first time, I see the cracks not as failures, but as warnings. I never gave this relationship, this triad, this possibility, the truth it needed. Now I'm afraid to face what that truth actually looks like. Lena touches my arm softly, grounding me in the moment I can't escape anymore. I return home just before sunset, the sky streaked in colors that feel too dramatic for how quiet the apartment is. Jonas sits on the floor assembling a shelf we ordered months ago but never bothered to unpack. The rhythmic sound of screws turning fills the room. I sink to the carpet across from him, knees almost touching, and he doesn't look up. He just keeps working, calm and unbothered. "Can we talk?" I ask softly. He sets the screwdriver down but doesn't raise his eyes yet, like he's gathering something inside himself. When he finally looks at me, I feel the weight of everything he's held back. "I'm tired of being scared to tell you when something hurts," he says quietly. The words slice through me. For the first time, I realize how much he carried alone, how deeply my laughter cut. I nod, throat tight, because I finally understand that healing won't come from apologies alone, but from owning the pain I caused. When night settles in, Jonas and I sit on opposite ends of the couch, not distant, but cautious, like two people relearning how to share space. I tell him I've been talking to Lena, and his expression barely shifts, though I can see something flicker in his eyes. I expect anger or hurt, but instead he asks, "Do you care about her?" His voice is steady, not accusing. I nod slowly, "But I care about you too." The silence that follows isn't hostile. It's contemplative, heavy with unspoken truths. Jonas leans back, rubbing his palms together, and says, "I don't want to stop you from loving people. I just don't want to lose the part of you that used to choose me too." The confession cracks something open in me, something I've been terrified to examine. I move closer, inch by inch, until our knees touch. For the first time in weeks, he doesn't pull away. The next morning, I wake before Jonas. Sunlight filters through the curtains, soft and warm, but it does nothing to settle the storm tightening inside me. I lie there listening to him breathe, wondering how many mornings I've wasted pretending everything was fine. When he finally stirs, eyes still half closed, he gives me a small nod, a gesture that feels like an invitation and a boundary all at once. I whisper his name, and he pulls himself upright, waiting, not impatient, not irritated, just ready for whatever truth I'm finally willing to offer. My voice shakes as I admit, I want to fix this, but I don't know where to start. Jonas rubs his face with both hands, tired but present. Start by telling me the part you've been scared to say. The words strike deep, because the truth isn't about who I love. It's about the fear that I'm not enough for either of them if I stop pretending. Later that day, I walk to Lena's apartment with my heart thudding against my ribs. She opens the door before I even knock fully, like she sensed the shift inside me. The moment I step inside, the warm scent of her place wraps around me, grounding and terrifying at the same time. I sit at her kitchen counter while she brews tea, and I feel like a child waiting to confess something shameful. When she finally sits across from me, I force myself to speak. I've been selfish, I say, and the words land hard. I wanted you both. I wanted all the softness without facing the consequences. Lena doesn't look hurt. She just looks sad, like she's been expecting this moment. You're human, she replies quietly. But wanting more than one person isn't the problem. It's pretending it won't change the shape of everything. Her honesty unravels me, stripping away excuses until all that's left is true. We move to the living room, sinking into the couch where so many of our conversations have unfolded. Some tender, some confusing, all intense. Lena turns toward me with a steadiness that makes my stomach twist. What do you want from me? She asks. Not accusing, not fearful, just sincere. I open my mouth, then shut it again because the answer isn't simple. I care about her deeply. I'm drawn to her in ways I never expected. But the thought of losing Jonas terrifies me. I admit all of this in a trembling rush, expecting her to pull away. Instead, she listens, her fingers brushing the edge of a pillow like she's grounding herself. Loving him doesn't erase what we have, she says softly. But you can't treat me like a place to hide from the parts of yourself you don't want to face. Her words cut gently, carving out the truth I've been avoiding. I can't keep choosing safety over honesty. By the time I return home, the sky has turned dark, and the apartment glows with soft yellow lamplight. Jonas sits at the table with a half-finished dinner, calmly scrolling through his phone. I stand at the doorway, taking him in, realizing how unfair I've been. Not because I love someone else, but because I demanded he hold every insecurity alone. When he finally looks up, his expression is open but guarded, as if he's bracing for another fragment of truth. I sit across from him, hands shaking, and tell him everything. My feelings for Lena, my confusion, my fear, my mistakes. He listens without interrupting, his jaw tense but his eyes steady. When I finish, he exhales slowly, as if releasing weeks of tension. I'm not angry, he says. I'm just tired of feeling like I'm the only one fighting for us. The words hit like a mirror I can't turn away from. Later that night, Jonas and I sit on the bedroom floor, backs against the wall, knees drawn up like two kids hiding from a storm. There's no tension now, just exhaustion, relief, and the faintest hint of hope. I tell him I don't want openness to become an escape from hard conversations. I want it to be something we choose together, not something I trip into while pretending I'm unbreakable. Jonas lets out a soft laugh. Not mocking, not bitter, just real. I never hated that you cared about someone else, he says quietly. I hated that you laughed at the part of me that was scared to lose you. I feel tears gather because that moment, the one I brushed off, changed everything. I lean my head on his shoulder, tentative but honest, and he doesn't pull away. For the first time, it feels like we're finally stepping into the same truth, instead of running from different ones. Morning arrives with a quiet so gentle it feels intentional, like the world is giving us space to breathe. Jonas sits at the edge of the bed, lacing his shoes, and I watch him in the soft glow of dawn, realizing how much I've missed simply observing him without fear. There's a calm between us that isn't avoidance anymore. It's the afterglow of truth, raw and freshly stitched. I sit up slowly, pulling my knees to my chest, and whisper that I'm scared, but I'm done pretending I'm not. Jonas looks over his shoulder, and something warm flickers across his face. Something like forgiveness, but softer, more fragile. "We can start over," he murmurs, "not restart, not erase. Just begin differently." I feel the words settle into me like steady ground, and for the first time I allow myself to believe we're not broken. We're becoming something new. Something that might hurt, but might also hold. I meet Lena later that afternoon in the small park near her apartment, where the wind carries the faint scent of rain. She walks toward me with a cautious smile, like she's unsure what version of me she's greeting. When she reaches me, she doesn't speak. She waits. That alone tells me how much space she's been holding without asking for anything back. I tell her everything. How Jonas and I talked. How we finally stripped away the layers of avoidance. How it doesn't magically fix us, but it opens the door to trying again. Her eyes soften. Not with disappointment, but with something steadier. Acceptance. I tell her I care about her deeply, but I can't keep loving her from a place of confusion. She nods, biting her lip, then steps closer and gently touches my arm. "Whatever shape this takes," she says quietly, "I just want it to be real." And for once, I know exactly what she means. We walk slowly along the path, the air cool and steady, the kind of weather that makes everything feel possible again. I tell Lena I'm choosing honesty over fear this time, that I want whatever we build to be intentional, not accidental. She listens quietly, hands tucked into her jacket pockets, her steps matching mine like she's letting the moment guide her. There's no tension, no pressure, just truth settling in the spaces between us. She admits she cares for me too, deeply, but she doesn't want to be the person I go to only when I'm running from something. Her voice is steady, not accusing, just truthful. I feel something loosen in my chest, a knot untied. I promise her she deserves more than half-truths and borrowed bravery. She smiles softly, the kind that hurts a little because it's real. And for the first time, I believe we might actually navigate this without breaking each other. When I return home, Jonas is sitting on the balcony with a blanket over his legs, staring out at the fading colors of sunset. I slide the glass door open quietly and step outside. He glances at me, then pats the space beside him. I settle in close, letting the warmth of his shoulder brush mine. For a moment, we don't talk. We just breathe in the same rhythm, letting the days settle between us. Finally, I tell him where I went, who I saw, and what I said. His eyes close briefly, like he's absorbing every word, not bracing for impact. When he opens them again, there's no resentment, just a tired kind of hope. "Thank you," he whispers, and I realize how much he needed clarity, not control. I lean into him, resting my head lightly against his shoulder. The sky deepens into gold and violet, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like we're staying in the same moment. Night settles in with a softness that feels earned. Jonas and I sit on the living room floor, a single lamp glowing behind us, shaping the room into a warm cocoon. I tell him I don't want to go back to how things were. I want something better, something honest. I tell him I care about Lena, but not in a way that replaces him, in a way that expands who I am, if we let it. Jonas listens, hands folded in his lap, and I can see the fear still there, but it's no longer ruling him. It's just part of the truth we're learning to hold together. He reaches for my hand, slow and deliberate, and when our fingers intertwine, something inside me unclenches. "We'll figure it out," he murmurs. Not a promise, not a guarantee, just a choice. A choice to stay, to try, to rebuild. And for the first time, the future doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like an open door we're stepping through together.